Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. Before we get into today's show, talking Indiana Pacers NBA Christmas Day game picks with Alex Golden, I did want to let you guys know about an exciting announcement that I have for you, the listener or the viewer, whatever you're on, Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube. Appreciate all of you. I have officially partnered with Dubby Energy. Dubby Energy is going to be my fuel source to help prevent jitters and crashes for Focus Energy while I work on draft film watching, big board making, editing podcasts, making podcasts, YouTubes, whatever. I'm going to be using Dubby Energy for my fuel source leading up through the rest of this NBA and NCAA season. Going to be a long grind. Going to need all the energy I can get. Dubby Energy is a formula that I personally believe in. They have vitamins, amino acids, and nootropics that include their patented Neurofactor. I would like for you guys to give it a try if you're interested. Pick up a starter kit, a tub, a shaker bottle. They've got some awesome merch as well on their website. All of that will be linked down below with their website. My exclusive discount code is 2pointers. That's TWOPOINTERS. That's 2pointers. Or you can click that link and it'll take you directly to the shop page where you will be able to support my show, help bring you some better content to be able to reinvest and put you guys out for the best stuff I can give you. Again, if you're interested, that's 2pointers or the link in the description below. Thank you guys for your support over the last 2 years. By the time you're hearing this and seeing this, Christmas Day games will have happened. My 2-year anniversary doing this will have happened the day after those games. Look forward to that yesterday in the NBA video. That'll be really, really cool. Thank you again to Dubby Energy. And if you're interested, please click the link in below or 2pointers in your cart at checkout. Thank you guys for your time. Enjoy the interview with Alex. Introducing here now Alex Golden, NBA on Twitter, host of the Setting the Pace podcast on Blue Wire Pods and creator of blueandgolden.substack.com. We have Mr. Alex Golden. My friend, how are you? Here to talk about the Pacers.
Hey, Trevor, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. The one Pacers friend in my life is going to really enjoy this podcast. For the other, hopefully, many of you that hear this, hope you guys enjoy this conversation. For the listeners that are not new here, I'm looking at the camera for this for the YouTube audience because I do deserve this. This is my public apology to the Pacers because I picked them to finish 15th in the Eastern Conference. Call this my public apology, similar to my Pistons one last year. I don't feel so bad about that one. But how obviously the Pacers have come to be this year so far, and they've looked really good. They're a young, exciting team, a lot of interesting pieces. Obviously, it would mean more coming from somebody who I trust around the subject, which is why I'd like to talk to Alex for the first time. But I want a little background for the listeners for you, a little bit about your Pacers fandom. So I had a couple questions for you, and we'll keep talking about the team as we go. How did you become a Pacers fan, and then how did it become something like this with the pod and the Substack that you wanted to start doing this career / for part-time to hopefully become a career maybe?
Yeah, shockingly enough, I just grew up as a Pacers fan with my parents. My dad, big-time Indiana Pacers guy, and I would say he was just a big basketball fan in general. And he's not even on the same level as me in terms of fandom. He was kind of a casual fan that watched a lot of games. They were really good back in the 90s, obviously making the Eastern Conference Finals runs, getting to the NBA Finals eventually in 2000. That's when he was like at his apex of fandom. And then I kind of just took the reins from there. So I had to suffer through the Jim O'Brien era of the Indiana Pacers with Danny Granger, Troy Murphy, Mike Dunleavy, that whole 3 or 4 years of just trying to get them back on track. We got to see Jermaine for a little bit with Artest, the Brawl. Then you get into the Roy Hibbert, Paul George, David West era. That was really fun. Went to the East Finals a couple of different times. And then you had the post David West, Roy Hibbert era with Paul George, which was Paul George and the randoms that kind of came through as we reshuffled the roster multiple times under Larry Bird. And then Paul George wanted out. Kevin Pritchard took over for Bird. Victor Oladipo came. Sabonis came. And now we have Tyrese Halliburton. So it's been quite the impressive run here for the Pacers to get good players on the roster. I would say not top 3 at any point in time, but they've always had good competitive teams. And now I would say my fandom really came into play during that 2010 to 2013 run when they had, or 2014 run when they had Hibbert, George, and West. I was listening constantly to the radio, and podcasts were kind of a thing then, but they hadn't really become big. And I was like, man, I was like messaging on Twitter these guys that were doing the radio shows here in Indiana, always wanted to get my opinion out there. Michael Grady, who is now the play-by-play voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, used to be the PA announcer for the Pacers for that era, and he was also the radio host of the morning show from 10 to noon. It was called the Grady and Big Joe Show. And obviously he had a lot of Pacers perspective on it because he's a Pacer fan and was, the PA announcer. So I really just kind of idolized him. I'm like, man, like he does a great job doing this. I played basketball in high school. I did a little bit of PA announcing after I graduated, did some coaching as well for the school that I graduated from. And I was like, I really just want to get into this as much as I can. Long story short, I just started, once podcasts started becoming big, I realized there was an avenue for me to just talk about the Pacers on a podcast. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect to be popular enough to get asked to come on the local radio stations that I once idolized when I was just like 18, 19 years old. Now I go on probably once or twice a month with some of the radio shows there. Have made good connections there, and our podcast is doing really well for the Blue Wire Podcast Network. It all started out as a dream. We had like 13 listens to our first episode of Setting the Pace, and it's just grown from there. So I would just say it's been a long time coming, but hard work and being in love with the Pacers, I guess is a nice way to say it. Like you have to really love what you're doing, and if you don't, it'll show through.
I think also it's a testament. The season's an 82-game grind. I don't think
Yeah.
people really understand that as fans, but once they start doing this and they're like, holy cow, every day there's something new with these things, especially when there's one team involved in this case, much less obviously there's 30 for some of these people that do it for a living full-time. I really enjoy some of the work that you and especially your co-host as well. I don't have his name in front of me, but like to have both of you on eventually to talk about.
Yeah, it's Mike Fauci.
Nice.
I will say this. Make sure you don't call him Fauci.
Aha,
It's Fauci. It's Fauci, F-A-C-C-I, not F-A-U.
Nice.
So if you call him Fauci on accident, because obviously Dr. Fauci during COVID,
Yeah,
he will let you know that you said it wrong. He gets very offended by that. And if you also tease him about being a Wizards fan, which he's not, but I met him when he was living in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So it became a running shtick on the show, and it still is, that he is a Wizards fan, and he can't stand it when I say that. So if you have him on, call him Fauci and tell him that you want to talk about the Wizards.
So you just handed me a perfect segue. There's a lot there with the Pacers story. We're going to get into some of the history there. I'm really excited to talk about it. Obviously, this team is right now the priority of this conversation, but I'd love to talk more about the history as well. In the interview with Tyrese Halliburton this July, first of all, congratulations on that. That's huge.
Yeah, thank you.
I believe you mentioned something about a zing about Porzingis, so that was my segue. Was you brought it up yourself? I did have a chance to listen to that Tyrese Halliburton interview. Talk me through your initial reaction, where you were, what you remember when you found out that Tyrese Halliburton was traded, and then realizing when it was Indiana, or were they the same moment? Talk me through that.
Yeah,
moment.
so I'm a delivery driver for my company, and I got the notification that the Pacers had traded Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb because it was a typo by Woj. And I'm like,
that as well.
And I was like, what the heck? So I'm like, it's maybe Justin Holiday. I was like, I'm trying to figure out who this third guy is. I was like, Justin Holiday makes the most sense for Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. And I'm thinking in my mind, we got Tyrese Halliburton. We had heard the Kings were interested for sure in Domantas Sabonis. It had been like a month or two ongoing, but I never felt in my gut that Kevin Pritchard would take on De'Aaron Fox's contract. I felt like they liked De'Aaron Fox maybe as a player, but that $33 million contract that he just signed was going to be too much money for what they were probably looking to do. And when I heard they got Tyrese Halliburton back, I was just stunned. I've always been a believer in Buddy Hield. I didn't hate him as a player. Always thought, yeah, he's kind of offensive minded for sure. Tristan Thompson was obviously a salary thrown, but I just thought to myself, this is a great trade. Jeremy Lamb was nothing for the Pacers. He actually is not in the league anymore. Justin Holiday was a piece that they missed for defensive purposes, but he really had struggled that season with the Pacers, and it was just time to break things up. So I'll be honest, when I found out we were getting Halliburton, completely stunned. Like Woj said, it was shocking. I mean, I could not believe the Kings gave up on him so quick, but I think it was the best trade potentially ever in Pacers franchise history.
I would love to say we have hours to talk about that because I'm sure there's some good ones in there. There's a couple notable ones I can think of off the top of my head. I really like, and I think the agenda I continue to make sure I'm clear about with people is less an agenda. It's more of just like, let's be transparent, knowledgeable NBA people, not just the two of us, but the community as a whole, that it's not like people were like, oh my God, I cannot believe they got rid of Tyrese Halliburton. I'm like, you realize who they gave up to get him, correct? Like, I think that narrative gets lost so many times, and Pacers fans definitely don't lose that narrative. They gave up Domantas Sabonis. It's a really big deal. A 20-11 guy for the Kings who's probably going to make another All-Star game, and they're obviously probably going to make the play-in, if not make the playoffs this year. So it hurt. It hurt, I'm sure, right, initially, but you got one of the best young guards in the last 15 years in the NBA, who a guy that relatively shouldn't even been drafted where he was. He probably should have been drafted in the first 8 picks. But I am with you. Shock was the word that I would have used. I think there's some other really good adjectives there, but it just for the typo to be there too. I'm glad you brought that up. It was just so awkward. It was like the biggest trade of that year so far. Like, it was pretty early on in the cycle. We're like, are we sure about this? Did Woj just get a bad source? Like, it just something felt off about it in like late January, whatever it was. It wasn't even February yet. So
yeah, I think it was early February, right before the deadline. Yeah,
I knew it wasn't on deadline time. That's why I was like maybe a little earlier, but
it was a couple of days before the deadline, because there was a lot of talk about the Kings and the Sixers making a Ben Simmons trade, and there was like Tyrese Halliburton was involved in those rumors there, but it was kind of like, it made a little bit more sense, I guess, because Ben Simmons' name was a lot bigger. The Sixers are just a bigger talking point in terms of like drama surrounding them than the Pacers are. The Pacers had a lot of drama though, and they were not playing well. And you're right. I mean, I'm a huge Domantas Sabonis guy. He was my favorite player on the team for the past 3 seasons before they traded him. I was actually hoping they'd move off of Miles and keep Domas around, because I feel like Domas was just put in a rough spot to be the best player and had no competent guard play, is what I would say. I mean, Brogdon, when healthy, was pretty darn good, but Brogdon couldn't stay healthy. So, you see what Sabonis is doing for the Kings right now. And if you go back, I mean, Pacer fans watched Sabonis for years, but his ability to create open space for players by his screening is just, and you can't even talk about it compared to like watching Miles Turner or Jalen Smith or Isaiah Jackson try to set a screen. They don't hardly make any contact, and it's pretty much get rid of the ball and move out of the way as quick as possible, almost like a ghost screen. But, Sabonis will like place the ball on the ground for like a dribble handoff exactly where his shooter can catch it. And there's going to be space. And we know that he's not like super athletic in terms of like being able to block shots. He's got a short wingspan. He's not that kind of player, but I love that he's had a very high defensive net rating this season. I mean, it kind of shows like defense is a team sport. It's not just on one player. Miles Turner is a much better defensive player than Sabonis is at the center position. But Sabonis is a light years better rebounder. So, I just feel like, yes, Sabonis being quiet, I think that's a problem here. He's an international player. He's very quiet, will never say anything bad. He doesn't show his raw emotions very much. All 4 of those line up, and that's kind of why this trade gets always pushed on like, oh, the Kings screwed this up, because Halliburton was emotional. He was open and talked about how it hurt him, and he wants to pay back Sacramento and make them regret this trade for years and years to come, and how he cried. Yes, how he cried, and he wanted to be the guy that restored the franchise and all this stuff. Like, he's just really outspoken. He's a really likable guy. Absolutely. Super easy to talk to. Like, you hear how authentic he is in his answers on any interview that he does, not even the one that he came on our podcast and did. But Sabonis is not that guy. Sabonis is just like, yeah, I like my teammates. I trust my teammates. Just trying to get the win, trying to get the win. That's what Sabonis says about every answer. So
very, very careful, very, very methodical in his answers, for sure.
Yes, he doesn't like that attention. So, but on court, Domas is fiery, and I love that about him.
There's some Kings media people that I trust that I hope can poke him a little bit and see how he wakes, especially in a year where they're doing really well. This isn't a Kings podcast, obviously, but I do like the point about Brown, or the defensive. I'll bring up Brown, but the defensive
he's been
rating as a coach for him, I think it's one of the best fits he's going to have in his career. Just the way he pushes that team defensively. So I'm glad we got our. I wanted to make sure that was on record for anybody that might not have heard me talk about it, because I think that whole narrative about who went where for what, it's just needs to be clear. Both players were deserving of the money was just there for the other guys. Don't get me wrong. Those two dudes could have been traded straight up, I think, and it would have been just the same. But talking about Tyrese Halliburton, I brought up, and this is the whole purpose. Obviously, they're winning some games. You and I both talked pre-pod that we both had them at 15 in our preseason rankings, which coming from a Pacers media person and a NBA as a whole person, we kind of somehow fell in that same boat. I projected a little, I'll be honest. I really thought the tournament was going to get moved, regardless of where it was. I thought there was a lot of things that could have happened. I was totally fine with them being a young team, play bad, learn from it.
Yeah.
Which is nothing wrong with that. The same thing that the Pistons are doing right now. So, obviously, a lot of things have changed, right? Mathurin's been an awesome rookie, could obviously technically win Sixth Man of the Year and Rookie of the Year. I don't think that's ever happened. Obviously, those are up for both play. Andrew Nembhard, a guy who I had at 31 last year. I was so close to putting him at 30 in my final big board. I should have dropped, Coloco 1. I should have flopped him. I'm looking back on it. I can't remember.
He went 31st, so you're good.
I know. I should have. I had him so close. I wanted him in the first round so bad, but I'm like, Coloco. I just like Coloco too much.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be the guy that didn't have Walker Kessler in the first round. I'd been an idiot. So,
yeah.
Andrew Nembhard's impact, obviously, as a second-round pick has been huge, going up against Steph, having a 30-point game. And then, of course, we talked about Tyrese Halliburton, who's been just super, uber efficient, all-star level point guard. I voted for him the last 2 days for what it's worth. What's been your favorite thing about this team this year?
Yeah, so, I mean, you brought up a lot of
You don't have to pick one, by the way. You can pick multiple.
No, you brought up a lot of good stuff there, and I think projecting wise is where we were at too. We did ours in August. So we all felt like there was going to be a good chance that Hield and Turner were off this team, potentially in a Lakers deal for Russell Westbrook. I mean, that's what was rumored out there. It felt like it could happen. And I think if the Lakers would have made both picks available, it probably does happen then. And it probably still happens now if that ever becomes available. But you think about this team without Buddy and Miles, and yeah, they are probably the 15th best team in the Eastern Conference. I think Miles Turner throughout his 25 games has just been really fantastic. They're 12-13 when he's played, but if you look at the wins that he's had, he's averaging almost 20 points a game, 8 rebounds, 2.5 blocks. He's shooting like over 42. I think it's like close to 45% from 3 in the games that they win. So he's been lights out. But I think honestly, the most interesting thing about this whole team has been the play of Benedict Mathurin early on. I think everybody expected him to start, and when he didn't, it was like, what are they doing? Well, that just goes to show you how smart of a coach Rick Carlisle is. He knew exactly what he was doing with this roster, and we shouldn't second guess what he's doing. Second of all, Benedict Mathurin is a bucket getter, okay? He's a foul magnet. He's shot the ball well. He's gone through a little bit of a slump here in the month of December after winning Rookie of the Month for October and November. But I think, the fact that he's only not scored in double digits 3 games this year, that is telling to me of, okay, this guy can put the ball in the bucket even when he doesn't have it going because he gets to the free throw line. The future is so bright with him and Halliburton. There's no doubt about it. That's your backcourt of the future. Carlisle's even said he's going to be a starter one day. He's just not right now, okay? And it's perfect for him to kind of experience coming off the bench, playing against second units, probably an easier opponent, but it also allows him to be kind of like the guy in the second unit where he would be kind of lost in the shuffle with the first unit, which you can kind of see happen sometimes when he plays with that starting group. He just kind of stands in the corner and doesn't get the valuable touches that he needs. So I think Carlisle's coaching has really helped Mathurin become better than he already is this early on, just because of the way they've utilized his role. And like lastly, you said Andrew Nembhard, he has been a complete surprise. I was kind of skeptical of the pick, not because I don't think he's a good player, but wasn't really sure, like, why are we drafting a third string point guard with our 31st pick? Like, why not go for somebody more athletic, take a flyer on somebody that could have been first round fringe? Maybe they didn't get there, but I'm completely wrong on that. That's a bigger miss than me saying the Pacers were going to finish 15th. I absolutely love Nembhard. I think he's a perfect fit with the starting lineup. I think eventually he's going to be the backup point guard for this team. TJ McConnell's going to move on. They're going to move on from that experience there. Nembhard is that good when given an opportunity, but Nembhard is smart. Nembhard knows his role. He's not going to overstep his boundaries. He's going to let Tyrese cook in that first unit, and he's going to be that chameleon that fits in with those other 4 guys. But when it comes time to, like, hey, let me be the ringleader, he's going to be able to go out there and do it. And I think you can kind of see how Rick was able to elevate Jalen Brunson's play as a second-round pick with Luka. You're going to slowly see that with Andrew Nembhard here with this Pacers team.
I like the Jalen Brunson point. It's also a testament to a point that I missed earlier in the year was before Nembhard. Obviously, they've been starting him recently, but it off and on, obviously. But I think him being on the second unit with Mathurin, mouthful. I think them together, I think that was really helpful because you're getting a winning type player. Obviously, Mathurin was the star off the bench and has been continuously, but Nembhard was playing with him and getting him open shots and getting him those quality looks. I think that's really important. They were playing together. Granted, it's only been 30 games almost now, but we've seen a good enough sample size where it's warranted of this discussion. He's just a winning player. Nembhard is. I think he's that Mark Few type. You mentioned smart, like just super intelligent, knows what he's doing, winning type of player. Obviously, in hindsight, 31st pick, third string point guard, all of that's valid. It's just I think long term, it's somebody that he had these intangibles. He just had this thing where he knew what he was doing all the time in the right place. You can't teach basketball IQ. I think you're born with it. I think it's something you continue to iron sharpens iron. I can't talk today, and I think Nembhard's that type of guy. The Mathurin piece I wanted to kind of poke a little bit because I like how you brought it up. Who, for those that might not listen or haven't heard you yet, and now they will, right? They know where to find you. Everything will be linked below, of course, and you'll get a chance to plug it at the end as well. They obviously took Mathurin. I had him ranked at 8. Similar guys ahead of him: Keegan Murray, Shaedon Sharpe, that type of player in that range, athletic people. But who did you want if it wasn't Mathurin? And were you happy with the result? Obviously.
Okay, so I was really high on Shaedon Sharpe for a majority of the pre-draft stuff. And then as more stuff started coming out about him and how he handled things with his agent, I was really trying to stick up for the guy. But I got to the point where I was like, I don't think the Pacers take him because I don't think the Pacers trust him. And the Pacers at this point, they're not here to play around. They don't want a project. They want a guy that they know is going to come in and work hard. So when I kind of read some of the stories that came out from The Athletic and stuff like that on him, I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit down on him now compared to where I was previously. So for me, I always liked Jaden Ivey more than Benedict Mathurin. Keegan Murray, I actually had ranked 6. I had Mathurin 5, Jaden Ivey, I think I had him 4, and then I just kind of assumed that it was going to be Chet, Jabari, and Paulo as the top 3. So we really didn't get into those too much because we thought it all starts with the Kings here at 4. What they do. Are they going to take Jaden Ivey? Are they going to pair him? Does that make sense? Are they going to go Keegan Murray because he makes more sense fit-wise for what they need? Keegan Murray, I felt like he's kind of similar to Sabonis where he gets overlooked. Really good player, but he's not flashy at all. Pretty quiet guy. Not like he's kind of got like a Danny Granger build to him, I guess you could say, and how he could fit in. And it's just taking time for him. I think he'll be okay once he gets going. But, Shaedon Sharpe, it was a guy that I thought, man, his ceiling could be really high. I wouldn't want to pass on this guy. But when it came to Mathurin, there was just something special about him. And there was a story that came out. He met with the front office, and they went out after their workout, and they went and had dinner. And they were really just intrigued by everything going on with him. And then all of a sudden, he said, hey, coach, can we go back in and do some more workouts? And Carlisle's kind of like, you want to work out again? You've been doing a ton of these workouts. We just had a workout and a meal at St. Elmo's. You want to go back? And he was like, yeah. He said, I want to beat that drill that I failed at the first workout. So Mathurin hates losing. And there's a drill that Carlisle has set up. I think it's 5 shots in 5 different spots around the 3-point line. And you have to hit a certain number to go ring this bell. Well, Mathurin didn't do it the first time, but when he came back and worked out with Carlisle the second time, he did. He knocked enough down, wouldn't ring the bell. And they had talked to him at the draft lottery and stuff like that. Halliburton really wanted Mathurin. That was something that they talked about. Like, he was in his hotel room during the draft night saying, this would be awesome, perfect fit. I think the Pacers knew they had a guy they could trust in Halliburton to be a facilitator and get someone going. But also, big thing here, like you said, Mark Few, he runs a lot of the same offenses that the Pacers run or that the NBA runs. His assistant took over at Arizona. I forget his name. I'm blanking on it. If you remember, bring it up. If I heard it, I'm like, oh, that's right, because he was at one of the first games of the season. But, Sean Miller out of Arizona, they bring in this guy from Gonzaga, runs a lot of similar sets to what the Pacers in the NBA, likes to run. So I think being able to see him in that system already kind of gave them okay, so we know that if we run this kind of offensive set, we can plug him in here. And that might be another reason why they were very high on Andrew Nembhard as well. Same system. So that is something that's always stuck out to me. But yeah, I really, I really just felt like he was a guy that he had athleticism, he had a lot of offensive firepower, and I think he has potential defensively. So I was really high on him. He was around 5 on my board, but I had Shaden Sharp around 7, and I had Tari Eason at 8. I was always high on Tari Eason. I liked him more than Sohan, and I was hoping the Pacers could get back into the lottery like Kevin Pritchard kind of hinted at maybe doing. And I was hoping Tari Eason would be the guy, but unfortunately they didn't. But they might have got another lottery level player in the drafting of Andrew Nimhard at 31, so it might have all worked out.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. I had the interview. I'm glad you brought that up. I think it was a really, really good. I think it was just great press. I think there's some good stuff out there. Draft time. I think you have to basically trust 80%, not trust 80% of what you hear, unless you trust the person. But I'd love that story. I remember the version of it. Also, shout out to Matherin's sister who played at North Carolina State right down the road from me. So got to see her play many a time. But
Tommy Lloyd was the name of the coach at Arizona. I'm sorry,
it couldn't come to me either. I'm glad you.
I was like, once I looked it up, I would know. It's like, come on.
A couple of things I did talk about. I'm glad you brought up the context of when you ranked them at 15th, but not that it matters for what we're talking about now. I did mine October 15th, so literally the week the season started. So I waited. I was like, all right, and I almost moved them a couple of times. Lastly, on the draft point before we keep moving, but there's receipts. Unfortunately, for the mock draft that I had a co-host at one point last year, I got the lucky draw of taking the Pacers at 6. Or 6, right? Is that where Matthew?
Yeah, 6.
At this point, I'm looking at my board and trying not to think about it. I thought the highest I could see Daniels go, Dyson Daniels, that is, would have been 6, and I really liked the fit initially. I was teetering between Matherin and Dyson Daniels. I don't think either one of them would have been bad. I just think at that point, knowing what we know now, 30 games in, Matherin was the perfect pick in that range because I don't think Davis was going that high. I don't think A.J. Griffin was going that high because of injury. Usman Jank's too much of a project, and then Keegan Murray was gone. So I think he's literally the perfect person that could have happened, which is why I was curious about where you were pre-cycle. Like, hey, did we get the right guy? Ultimately, I think we can agree that probably is the case.
I'm pretty sure the Pacers were going to pick one of Keegan Murray, Jaden Ivey, or Benedict Matherin. I was
so sold on the Ivy Pistons fit that I just couldn't think of anywhere else. I was so that was the agenda that I felt was the best, and I pushed it as hard as I could, and I'm glad it happened because I had a lot of people coming after my neck about that. So I'm very glad it happened. He looks awesome. It is what it is. But yes, I like his fit there too as well.
Yeah, it's good, and honestly, probably less pressure for him not being in his home state, in my opinion.
Correct.
That's a lot of pressure for sure. And Dyson Daniels, man, like there was a lot of buzz about him to the Pacers. Said that he had one of the greatest workouts ever. And I'm just like, come on, are we really buying into the workout stuff? Like the workout stuff does not matter nearly as much as people think it does. It does.
Don't believe 80% of what you hear. That's my rule.
Right. Yeah.
Just trust the 20% that you trust. It is what it is.
It is what it is. But Dyson Daniels, everybody kept saying, oh, he's like another Tyrese Halliburton. I'm like, why do you want 2 of those guys? I'm not trying to be mean,
exactly.
But if they're the same type of player, don't you want to get something that kind of is more cohesive with what Halliburton does instead of another replica? Yeah. Because you can only have the ball in their hands at so much, one time anyway. So I wanted more athleticism, someone that could be a little bit more effective from 3 as well, because I believe Dyson Daniels was not a good 3-point shooter coming into the draft, if I'm not mistaken.
Say that again.
Dyson Daniels, I don't think he wasn't known for his 3-point shooting. I think that was kind of a knock on him.
That was the point I was going to make was he's a Tyrese Halliburton clone as a point guard maybe, but there are some things to be desired as a shooter, averaging 25% from 3 in his pre-draft stuff. So I'm with you there. I think there's a lot of comparisons there. Why would you basically copy and paste with a worse shooter? That's essentially what they would have done. But he's got that 6'11" wingspan, and every now and then I just think about it and I go watch it and I'm like, oh, this is the guy I fell in love with at 10. It is what it is. I think we conclude. I think Benedict Matherin is the perfect answer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that it ended up that way for you guys.
Yeah.
Obviously. Transitioning to a little bit less serious topic. Obviously, when they're on the court, they look really good. But do they look really good with what they're wearing? And I want this conversation to be transparent. So, obviously, Pacers Twitter, I told you pre-pod, I've ended up on it somehow, probably because of you and some others. But it just seems like this year's City jersey is pretty unpopular. I just have to – we can keep this short. I know your opinion. I've seen some polls. I've seen you answer. I've seen you react. So what is it that you don't like about the City jersey, and then what would you incorporate or change about it?
I mean, let's just be honest.
And I'm
Anytime
going to
you
throw a
make
picture up, by the way, right here.
anytime you make a jersey based off of the reconstruction of the building, that's just tacky as all get out. Like the only thing more tacky they could have done is put cornfields on the Pacers jersey. Okay, like I know we're known for racing, so like there for a while we had like the race car type of suit turned into a jersey, which a lot of people love those. I really like the white and the royal blue. A lot of people like the navy and the gold ones. That was 17, 18, 18, 19. And then you had like some type of version of like a Flojo mixed with like a pinstripe that was kind of cool. If you don't know the Flojos, those were the classic ones that Reggie wore when he was taking down the Knicks in the Garden. So those are the
Yep.
Flojo jerseys. But
Classic.
yeah, they're pretty awesome. A lot of people like those. But yeah, I was just like, what is this? And like the leak photo was not great. I think the shorts actually make the jersey and the uniform come together a little bit more. I actually don't mind the black as much as I thought, but like when they first showed it, the leaked one looked almost more like a royal blue with like a grayish navy. So it's kind of like a weird color. They're better on in person than they were in the pictures. I'll be honest there. And I actually do kind of like the Pacers logo that they have with that, but it's just like I don't know. I think it would have been better if they didn't have the royal blue part on it, or the yellow construction part that looks like the field house
Yeah.
on like the part below the letters. So
It's the first thing you notice, unfortunately.
yeah, it's just kind of tacky looking. And so I made a replica photo of it as a joke where I put two cranes, like construction cranes that are yellow, connecting to one another to kind of make it look
Love it.
like it came across there. And I mean, I was just being dumb. I was having fun with it because everybody was hating on it. But yeah, it's just not a good looking jersey, but it's better on in person than it is in pictures. But still, it's one of those that it's forgettable. I think it might only be better than the gray jerseys that were a city jersey not too long ago. I think that might have been 1819 or 1920.
Yeah, I believe so.
And I
Looking
did
it
not
up.
like the grays. It was the Tyreek Evans year, so
Oh boy.
I hated those. I thought those were ugly. Some people like the grays, but it was
Yeah.
just very, very boring to me. Basic.
So you added the crane as a joke. Anything you would do or change to the way it's constructed to make this year's the best? It's hard to do that
Just
visually, I'm sure, but
no,
how could you describe that?
I would say just stick with what's worked before. Like
Okay.
Tyrese Halliburton came on our podcast and said that his favorite Pacers jersey of all time is the gold pinstripes. So like
We're getting to that.
yeah, why not dive into something like that? Like that would be awesome. Like why not just like the Pistons came out with their teal jerseys, right?
Yep.
For I don't know if those were the New City edition or what those were, but
I think
you
they
know,
technically were. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like if they can throw a retro one out there that was awesome back in the day. I mean, I know some people don't like it, but I love that jersey. I think it's so cool. There's a picture of Ivy making I think he had like a dunk or something, and he was like flexing, and then behind him, Jalen Duren standing up there like with his mouth wide open, screaming. And it's a sick picture, and they're
Yep.
in those classic jerseys. But
The
yeah, I
Grant Hill
mean,
specials is what I call them.
yes, yeah, the Grant Hill special, exactly. The teals are tight. I honestly just like the retro stuff. There's so many awesome retro Pacers jerseys to pull
Yeah.
from. Why
So
do
then
this?
let's just pivot then, because my rapid fire, my first question is, what is the best jersey of all time that's not the classic pinstripe for you?
Yeah, so I really like the late 1980s royal blue
Mm,
jersey that
okay.
Reggie Miller rocked when he was a rookie. If you look at the blue and golden that I do, my logo for that, I actually made some of the lettering into those the lettering from that logo. I love that. I love the Flojos, but I really like the pinstripes too.
Nice.
So it would still be that one from the 80s just because I like the royal blue. I wish the Pacers were more royal blue than navy. Just my opinion. I personally like royal blue better than navy, but
Okay.
I think it pops more. I think it looks cleaner, but
I like the one you're talking about. I guess they technically call it the Team Heritage one now that they wore from looks like 71 to 87. Does that sound right? Or I guess it's some point off and on. You'll have to make sure I get the right
I don't.
picture post recording. But
I will have to make sure because I'm not
Pacer with
sure.
like the little yellow line that goes across above the word Pacer and then go down the side.
Let me look real quick
We'll
because
make sure.
it might have been the one after that. So you said it went to 1987.
I see it now. I think I have the wrong one. I
Yeah,
see 1980s Pacers Memories Tribune Star.
let me
Make sure I get the
see.
right one. We'll do that post recording. I'll make sure I put it in for the YouTube audience.
Mm.
For the audio audience on Apple, Spotify, this is your plug to come watch it on YouTube. Oh, what? Pull it up here. I think you're blurred, but
I
I
am
see it. I
blurred.
think that's the right one.
Oh,
Um,
come on. I'll
I
turn my
think I
blur
can
off
see
real quick.
I think I can see the outline though. I think I know which one you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah,
It
let me
says
see
Clark
here.
Kellogg on my Google here. It's the one. Is that the one Clark Kellogg would have worn? Let's see. That is it. That's the right one.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I
yeah.
did have the right one.
Okay.
That is a good pick. I will put that up on the screen as well, just to make sure people can see it. Thank you for the honest answer, because I was like, I know the
Yeah.
pinstripes are the obvious best. Like, let's just be clear, they are the
Yeah.
best. But however, they've got some other good ones as well.
They
And I think
do.
that's
There's
up
there's one that's underrated too, and I think it might have been one that you're talking about. The Pacers actually posted a poll and asked what your top three were on Twitter not too long ago, and I was
there.
like,
Nice.
man, this is tough because there's so many good ones. I mean, it's
One of the
hard
more
to go wrong
underrated
with it.
jerseys, especially for a team that's been around a while too.
Yeah, for sure.
Good conversation there, because you brought up the jersey thing where I talked about it a little bit, and then you started talking about others. So I was like, this is perfect. That's the first rapid fire question. I put it there like that just in case we started talking about the jerseys a little bit. So we'll keep rolling rapid fire then, because I've only got a couple more, and then we'll sprinkle in really quick some NBA Christmas Day game predictions.
Okay.
Favorite Pacers player of all time?
Reggie Miller.
Yeah,
Pretty
fair enough.
obvious.
Pretty easy, yeah.
Yeah.
Best Pacers moment or performance you've ever witnessed in person?
In person. Okay. So
I'm sure there are obviously, you can probably say one for not in person, one for another, but what's in person the best thing you've ever
okay.
seen?
So I actually was in the arena for Lance Stevenson's first comeback when the Pacers had to win like 6 games in a row to close out like the 14-15 or 15-16 season to make the playoffs. It might have been 16-17, I can't remember, but they all run together. It's when they had Monte Ellis on the team, Jeff Teague was on the team, Jan Mahimi was the center, and they brought Lance back for the final 6 games.
I do remember
And
this.
he made PJ Tucker and DeMar DeRozan so mad because the game was over and Paul George threw the ball up court to Lance with like 10 seconds left. The Pacers were up by like 6 or 7. I can't remember, but the game was basically over at this point. And Lance was so excited. He went and laid the ball up. And oh man, Corey Joseph at the time was on the Raptors. Then he became a Pacer shortly after. He threw the ball at Lance when he threw it in. PJ Tucker and DeRozan are in his face. And he's like apologetic afterward, but like the Michael Grady interview that he did before coming on, he said, "Man, me returning is gonna be like something crazy, like Michael Jordan returning or something." Like Lance acted like him returning to the field
That's
house
the quote
was
people
like
remember. That's the quote people remember.
like
for
Michael
sure.
Jordan returning. So that was honestly one of the most fun in game experiences I've ever been to. But I did also see Danny Granger hit a game winner against the Knicks. That's pretty cool.
I was going to ask, is there any performances, and that's obviously a dope performance in terms of
or
the buzzer beater anytime you see
I think it was game 3 against the Knicks in the second round. Pacers won by like 20 points in that game in the playoff game, and I had bought tickets.
Nice.
About 6 rows up on the corner behind the Knicks bench, and you're seeing all the Allen Houstons and Marcus Camby guys like walking in the arena to watch the game. And I don't know, I think some of them worked in the front office, but it was just like Latrell Sprewell was there. It's like, man, that's just giving me some nostalgia here seeing these guys. But that was really cool as well, just how like awesome that was. And there was like an Avengers themed intro for the Pacers, which was pretty awesome.
Nice. Who is the most underrated player, do you think, in team history? Who's somebody that fans are going to forget about that we underappreciate?
Man, that's a tough one. Man, I'm going to think about this for a minute.
I have one, but I'm biased.
Well, let me hear what you got.
I think T.J. Warren was so underrated, but I think injuries are his story, unfortunately.
But he was only there for 1 year, so I don't feel
true.
like that's
true. I think I should probably pick a better one. That was a homer pick, I'll be honest.
I think you kind of have to go back, to be honest with you, which I get it. North Carolina State,
homer pick. It is what it is. I think he was so good, but it is what it is.
I mean, if you go back, I would have to say probably Derek McKee.
Oh.
What he meant to those Pacers runs that got them to the NBA Finals eventually. Now, I did get a little bit older, obviously, and they had Jalen Rose playing more minutes than him. And I don't even remember if he was on that 2000 team, to be honest, but he might have been. It's all blur now. I feel like he's someone that was super underrated. I think Danny Granger also is another guy that was really underrated. He was pretty good for them in a era where they were just trying to get by as they were going through a rebuild. And people love Danny Granger, don't get me wrong, but like if he had played with a really talented basketball team, I think he could have been really impactful for them. So those are the two that I can think of off the top of my head. And one that'll probably be forgotten too is just what Thad Young meant to this Pacers team when he was here as well. I think Thad Young
That's
was
dope.
so good. He was such a great
That's
locker
awesome.
room player, locker room leader, and I think he was a great defensive player that they needed. We joked that he was the Giannis stopper. Obviously, nobody can stop Giannis,
I
but
wonder if that's why the Raptors picked him up. Interesting.
yeah, well, they need to change what they're doing because they're in
Yeah,
trouble. But
that's a whole nother it's a whole nother show.
yeah,
I looked up I like the Derek McKee one. I think that's a name that a
yeah,
lot nickname Heavy D. That was the thing I remember about him, was the funny nickname.
yeah.
But you were correct. He was age 34 on that 2001 or
Okay,
2000, whatever. Technically that year, it was his second to last year in the league, so he almost missed that finals year, but he was
yeah.
there. He was on the team. That's
Well,
dope.
I remember the Pacers traded Detlef Schrempf at the time for him,
Yeah,
and Detlef was like sixth man of the year. He was such a really good pivotal piece of the Pacers, but they already had their scores in Chuck Person and Reggie Miller, so they were able to get their defensive stopper in Derek McKee by making that trade. And you think about it, him guarding MJ in those 7-game series probably made a big difference.
yeah. That's a great one. That's homework. I don't give homework out much anymore on the show, but that's the guy to look up, Derek McKee. So let's keep going here, rapid fire. Who is another Pacers creator or writer or otherwise you enjoy and you would like to give a shout out to? Obviously, you've already mentioned your co-hosts, so I would like
Yeah.
another one if you would like.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many awesome guys and girls that cover the team for the Pacers. So I think first and foremost, I got to give Chris Denary, the voice of the Pacers, a huge shout out because this season he has really taken me and my co-host under his wing to a certain degree. Took us back after the game that the Pacers lost a close one to the Nuggets to a season ticket holders meeting with him. We got to chat with him and Jeremiah Johnson, who's the sideline reporter as well for the Pacers for Valley Sports Indiana. And, he took us through the facility and just kind of let us see everything. So since we're not credentialed media members, we just do a podcast. It was kind of cool to be able to see all that kind of stuff. And he's just been really supportive of the show. So I got to give him a shout out. Obviously, Scott Agnes from Fieldhouse Files does a great job. Tony East, Locked On Pacers, and SI.com. He does great. Everybody knows Caitlin Cooper. I don't think I need to shout her out too much, but she's great at what she does. Pacer fans are lucky to have her and her writing and what she catches and how she's able to break the game down so well. And then, other than that, I think some guys that are under the radar that deserve some more love are Derek Kramer from iPacers blog. He does a great job doing weekly recaps, or excuse me, game recaps every single time there's a game. And if he misses one, he'll catch up on that for iPacers blog. And I know that he retired from writing for a little bit, so he made a nice comeback. And then Zach Pearson, Pacers Press, Substack, he was working really hard at 8 points, 9 seconds and decided to go into a different route. So those are the main ones there that I can really think of off the top of my head. And, we're just Pacer fans have a lot of different people they can go to for content. And I think that all of them do a great job. And I enjoy listening and reading their work whenever I get the chance to do it because, we all have different opinions and it's kind of cool to see if we're in agreement on things, what I might have missed, they caught on to, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, for your day-to-day stuff, Tony and Scott are right there. And Dustin from the Indy Star, he just started this year covering the Pacers. He's been long time covered Indiana sports, Indiana Hoosier sports. He jumped over to the Pacers beat now for the Indy Star since James Boyd left. And, I haven't had a chance to talk with him yet. I would love to have him on the podcast soon, but I know he's done a great job as well with his day-to-day coverage of the Pacers.
Sound like you're really knowledgeable of the subject. I'm glad I asked that question.
Sorry, I shouted out like 20 people there,
No,
but
that's good.
it's
All
just
of it. Like,
I
I'm
don't
not gonna
want
be able to catch
anybody.
all of their ats, but that's okay. If they hear
No,
this,
no,
awesome. You can tag him on Twitter if you want. I
it's
really
not a
like
big
the
deal.
Zach. I really like the Zach Pearson one. He was one of the first people, or Pearson. Is it Pearson or Pearson? I always get his name mixed up. Pearson.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. He was one that he was probably the first person who I found through 8 points in 9 seconds. So
Yeah, funny story. We actually had started a website called PacersTalk.net, and he was a writer for that when I was starting that up. And so I kind of gave him that opportunity to write with that website and kind of do what he wanted. And he really enjoyed it. And so he decided he was going to continue to pursue that passion of his. And so he went to 8 points, 9 seconds. I ended up joining 8 points, 9 seconds last year and being a content creator while he was the site editor, like the site expert, or whatever they call it. And so a lot of times we were collaborating together, and then we both left this season to kind of do our own thing for Substack. So, I've known Zach for a little while. He's a great person, and not just an awesome Pacer fan that's, pretty positive about the team. He's just a really good guy. So shout out Zach. I'm glad that you found him. He's a good dude.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to tackle them as well. I got my last question here, and then we'll rapid fire the NBA Christmas Day game predictions
Awesome.
like I have every year. I try to have a guest on every year and get their predictions as well.
All right.
True or false? Gamebridge Fieldhouse, whatever the name is, they've changed it 1,000 times. Fieldhouse, is it the best fieldhouse venue in all of basketball?
As far as I know, yes. I've been in the other ones, so I'll have to say yes.
I think so too, and I've never been to it. But the reason I say it is because everything I've understood, read, seen, heard is that it's entirely designed for basketball, and in the NBA, it's one of a kind. Other than obviously MSG's kind of a weird, unique one, but it's designed for basketball. The way like the Clippers are going to be the next team to do that when they build this new arena in Inglewood. We both might be 58 by the time that's done, but the Inglewood Arena is designed after Gamebridge Fieldhouse in terms of the way the walls are set up and the way the sound barrier. Like when that, I mean, you said you've been some of those Pacers playoffs games. Like that's probably some of the loudest playoff atmosphere in all of sports. Like it's truly designed like that. And I wanted to give it. This was more of me giving it its fair shout out. And you've been, but I have a bucket. My listeners know I have a bucket list item where I want to go to every NBA arena in the next hopefully 10 years or less. I've only knocked off a couple, but. Was supposed to go see Paolo against Trae Young a couple weeks ago, and I missed out on that opportunity.
Oh, man.
In Orlando, unfortunately, would have been cool, but in right time as well. But yeah, Gamebridge Fieldhouse is definitely like in the next. It's not that far from me here in North Carolina. Like it's a flight versus a drive, I'm sure. But it's just one of those ones. It's always been high on my list because of the design and the basketball, like the way they kept it in mind with it. So I'm really excited it's on that list.
Yeah, for sure. I think they actually kind of copied the Butler Bulldogs Hinkle Fieldhouse make, because that was obviously before they built that in 1999, I believe, actually, is when it was their first game. But yeah, I've heard a lot of great stuff about Market Square Arena. I mean, I was born in 92, so Market Square Arena was like demolished by the time I really got to, or they had moved over to the field house by the time I was like 7. So I'm sure I went to a game or two when I was younger there, but I couldn't remember what it looks like or anything like that. But I've always loved the field house, no matter what the sponsor's name of it is. But it's awesome, man. I mean, there's no other place like it, and honestly, there's not a bad seat in the house, no matter where you sit.
Right. I've heard great things. All right, really quick, we'll hit these NBA Christmas Day games. Let's try to go 5 for 5, the two of us. Not that we're going against each other or anything collectively here. I think other than because of some injuries on the Warriors side, and if the Suns get Devin Booker back, this is a pretty loaded slate. I've been very, very open about this opinion. The NFL should never try to come for the NBA on Christmas Day. It is the NBA's day. Leave them alone. Anyway, Sixers Knicks is the first one. Who you got?
This is going to be a tough one. I think the Sixers get the victory here. Joel Embiid has a really good game.
I think they're both getting hot at the right time. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Sixers. I was going to do its own segment with me alone, like after you get off here. But you know what? People don't want to hear that, so I'm going to do that now. Let's just knock it out because I have another idea for later in the week before Christmas Day starts. So Sixers, Knicks, I'm with you. I think Joel Embiid has a huge game. Harden, I just don't see a capable defender for Harden. I think Sixers get that win. Lakers, Mavs at 2:30.
Let's go Mavericks. I think the Lakers without Anthony Davis, it's going to be challenging for them. And I think while the Mavericks have not been great this year, they got Luka Doncic, and he's a special player.
Assuming, obviously, that we're recording this on Wednesday the 21st. When listeners hear this, it'll be the 22nd. A couple things could change. I'm sure somebody might be in or out of the lineup. But if all things stay the same, the Mavs should pretty much handle the Lakers. And unfortunately, that is the time that I can watch the most, is that mid-afternoon. And it's my team, and I'm probably going to not watch this game. I'll be transparent with you. I'm going between houses at that time, so hopefully that'll be good timing on my part, because I would like to watch. I'm going to go with the Mavs as well. I would like to watch my segue, Bucks Celtics at 5 o'clock. That's the primetime 5 o'clock game, going up against, I believe it's like Rodgers against the Dolphins or something in the NFL. I believe is that timeline there. But Bucks Celtics, who you have?
I'm gonna go with my heart here, not my head. I'm picking the Bucks. I was rooting for the Bucks last year against the Celtics. I just love Giannis. I think he's special, but I think this is also a statement game for the Bucks. Yep. They've kind of, last year the Celtics beat them for sure. Malcolm Brogdon probably wants some revenge against the Bucks, obviously, just because it's a different atmosphere here. But Chris Middleton not being there for the Bucks last year was a huge talking point. So I think had he played, the Bucks win that series against the Celtics. and I think the Bucks are going to show them that, hey, we're the best team in the East for a reason. You're number 2, and it's going to be a close one, but I got the Bucks winning on a game winner from Chris Middleton.
I was going to make a bold prediction, so there you go. Thank you for that. I think Giannis has a 40-20 game.
Ooh,
I just
40,
don't think
20.
I don't think is Robert Williams even back. Even if he is, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing that, but
I thought he
think
was supposed
Al
to come
Horford-
back.
I thought he was too. So if he is back, I think that was part of my prediction. But whatever, outdated at this point. Who cares? But I'm not cutting it out. Al Horford, I think not back as well. If Robert Williams is back, I still think he's a better capable rebounder against the Celtics. I just think there's some things Giannis can do that even they can't stop this year, especially with his upgrade. I think it's a close game as well. I'm with you. I think Giannis has a 40-20. I'll just lock it in. Who cares?
Love it. I love it.
But I do think the Bucks win. So far we've gone. I think we've agreed on all of them, which is really bad. We're pulling the college game day thing where everyone picks the same team and then the last guy doesn't. It's like, oh gosh. Grizzlies Warriors. Unfortunately, no Steph and probably no Wiggins in this one. They'll probably sit Draymond Green too at this point. Grizzlies Warriors. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, you said it right there when 3 of your potentially 4 best players are out. And the Grizzlies have been playing amazing basketball of late. Ja Morant's, just oozing with confidence. If I'm sure you guys saw his Malika Andrews interview.
Yes.
That came out today where they said, who's the team that's standing in your way the most? He said the Boston Celtics. He's not worried about the Western Conference. They got that. So, all right, Ja, I'm putting my trust in you. You're going to take down the depleted Warriors on Christmas Day.
Yeah, unfortunately, this might be the dinner skip. We're all eating dinner, opening gifts with our in-laws probably, and that's the one we're all skipping as well. I'm totally fine with it. Suns Nuggets. I think this is an amazing nightcap, assuming that Booker plays. Porter Jr. is not going to be back unless some major development happens on Saturday, which I don't think will happen. So Phoenix is in Denver. Who you got?
I'm going with the 2-time MVP. Nikola Jokic is going to have a statement game on Christmas Day against the Phoenix Suns. It's time for the Nuggets to continue their ascension. I actually predicted them to finish first in the Western Conference this year, so I'm holding on to that. I think I had the Suns at 2 actually, so I think these are potentially your 2 top teams record-wise in the Western Conference going head-to-head. Don't think it'll be our Western Conference Finals, but I believe in the Nuggets. I think Jokic is just such a fantastic player. Love the Aaron Gordon fit, and I really like the trade they made to get KCP. Love his fit there as well. So I'm going to go with the Nuggets, taking down the Suns, who seem to never can get it all the way together. And it always seems like there's just some kind of drama looming over their head. I'm sure you saw the clips on Twitter last night between DeAndre Ayton and Monty Williams once again. So I just can't trust the Suns right now.
Totally understandable. I'm a Devin Booker truther. If he's playing, I don't think they have anybody. Jamal Murray's not fully healthy yet. I think he's kind of getting into that game flow. I think Porter Jr.'s shooting and spacing is going to hurt them against the Suns, or not being there or lack thereof. I will say I think you're welcome anytime at this point, because we agree on where you have the Nuggets, where you had the Suns, and unfortunately in this case we're not going to agree on the pick. I'm going to go with Phoenix, because even without Booker I think they can beat the Nuggets. Jokic is having to do a lot right now. Not that a 40, 27, and 10 game's not impressive by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think Phoenix can beat Denver. I think it'll be a good game, good close game. Fortunately, again, it's 10:30 on Christmas. I doubt that as many people will watch this. I can't wait to see the numbers for the viewership. So, but you're welcome back anytime, based on the fact that we've agreed on a lot of things today. This is dope. So, this is our way of concluding. So I appreciate your time. Go ahead and give some plugs anywhere people can find you. Of course, it is all going to be linked below in the description as well on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere people are listening to this. So plug away anything that you want to promote, plug, talk about, endorse.
Yeah, I know. I really appreciate the time, Trevor, having me on and the questions. And I apologize if I was too long-winded with my answers, which I know I can be. So I do apologize for that. But if you haven't already, we'd love for you guys to check out our Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Like you said earlier, I did start a Substack called The Blue and Golden. I have really struggled to keep up with writing for that as much as I was hoping to. I was going to do a weekly recap of what was going on, and I just kind of got caught up. I was sick, and the holidays came around. So we're going to get back on track writing there. It might not be the same format I had started out doing, but we're going to get back to that. But I have been doing a weekly YouTube show on our Setting the Pace YouTube channel called The Blue and Golden as well. And that's where I have different guests come on, and we just do a one-on-one conversation with myself and something that's I'm really excited about. It's going to be coming out over the next couple of weeks. My buddy David and I, we did a Pacers Survivor Simulator online, and we put 15 of the Pacers players in the game, as well as President of Basketball Operations Kevin Pritchard, head coach Rick Carlisle, and a general manager, I should say, Chad Buchanan. And we did the version that was the brain versus the brawn versus the beauty. And we got all the way, it was about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes of simulating and talking about it. So breaking that down into 3 episodes there on the YouTube page. It was super, super fun. I think anybody that loves Survivor or likes just seeing how this whole thing plays out is going to be surprised by the winner. I will say that it is a very shocking finale, but yeah, lots of interesting drama on the show and lots of cool stuff that happened. But yeah, if you're a Survivor fan, the simulator does a great job of just creating awesome storylines. So that'll be coming out on the Blue and Gold, and we'll be able to see it and see what's going on. So that is that.
That is not where I expected that plug to go, and I love it. And now I'm intrigued, and I'm going to watch it. So for anything Pacers related or all the stuff you mentioned just now, feel free to check all of it out below. Thank you for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, like, and comment below. Thank you guys for listening today, for watching, whatever you're doing. Don't forget to hashtag NBA All-Star vote. We'll see you later.